I never thought I'd be the nurse who'd trade my oath for stolen moments in a patient's arms. My name's Tessa, and this is my confession, raw and unfiltered, a story of betrayal so sharp it cut through my duty and left me in shadows. If you're watching, you're already hooked, caught in a truth that feels like fire until it's a chain around your soul. This isn't about love or redemption, it's about infidelity, the kind that blinds you and dares you to fall. Stay with me because this one's going to unravel you. It's a tale of care, lust, and a sin I couldn't bury. It was a sweltering July evening in Savannah, Georgia, the air thick with moss and quiet desperation. I was 30, a home care nurse working for a private agency tending to patients in their homes. My fiancé, Mark, 32, was a paramedic, our engagement new but strained by long shifts. One patient, Daniel, 40, a widower recovering from a car accident, changed everything. He was charming, his gray eyes sharp despite his pain, his Victorian home a maze of warmth and loneliness. That night, I was checking Daniel's vitals in his dimly lit bedroom, the fan humming, the air heavy with antiseptic and something sweeter. I wore my scrubs, my hair tied back, professional, but aware of his gaze. "You're a lifesaver, Tessa," he said, his voice low, his hand brushing mine as I adjusted his bandage. The touch was electric, a spark that hit like a storm. I told myself to stay focused, to think of Mark, but the mossy air, the quiet house, his eyes, it was too much. The bedroom was soft, the curtains swaying, the air thick with tension. Daniel leaned closer, his hand grazing my arm, his eyes searching mine. "You don't have to be just a nurse," he said, his tone daring, his breath warm. My engagement ring burned, a reminder of Mark, but my loneliness was louder, a whisper I couldn't silence. I nodded, my silence a confession. His smile was slow, dangerous, like he'd seen my need. We slipped to the living room, the air thick with oak and want, the night shielding us. Daniel's hand slid to my waist, his fingers warm through the scrubs, a spark that burned through my oath. "Tell me to stop," he whispered, his lips close, his breath hot with bourbon and longing. I didn't. My hands found his chest, the cotton soft, his pulse strong. The fan hummed, the house dark, and I was already lost. His kiss was a collision, fierce and desperate, tasting of bourbon and sin. My hands slid up his neck, pulling him closer, the couch creaking beneath us. The night pulsed, the air heavy as his lips trailed to my throat, his hands bold, each touch a pulse of pleasure and betrayal. I was drowning, and Daniel was the tide pulling me into a sea of want. Mark's face, my duty faded, leaving only him, his heat, my hunger. His kiss was a wildfire burning through my loyalty to Mark. Daniel's hands were bold, tugging at my scrubs, his fingers grazing my skin through the fabric. The living room was a haze, the lamplight casting shadows that danced like secrets. My hands roamed his chest, the cotton slipping, revealing skin that burned under my touch. The mossy air matched my racing heart, the air thick with bourbon and desire. His lips were everywhere, my jaw, my collarbone, each kiss a claim, each touch an oath shattered. I pulled him toward a guest room, the door half closed, shielding us from the world. My scrubs were gone, discarded in the haze, revealing lace that made his breath catch. My hands slid lower, tracing his waist, his gasps sharp in the quiet space. The guilt was there, cold and sharp, but my longing fueled every touch, every move. His hands were on my thighs, sliding under the lace, his fingers leaving trails of fire. The guest room was our world, the house a distant hum. I pressed him against the bed, my body molding to his, the lace a tease I couldn't control. His lips found mine again, hungry, demanding tasting of bourbon and want. My hands slid under his shirt, his skin warm and taut, his breath hitching as my fingers explored. The lamplight glowed, painting us in amber and shadow, turning our sin into something almost beautiful. But it wasn't. It was raw, reckless, a collision of need and betrayal. "Tessa," he murmured my name, a spell pulling me deeper. My fingers tangled in his hair, my body arching into his, a demand he couldn't resist. The night was suffocating, the fan relentless as my hands gripped his shoulders, his pants a barrier I wanted to tear away. The pleasure was building, a storm of its own, raw and relentless, edged with the guilt of betraying Mark. When it happened, it was a collision, a wave crashing over us. His groans were sharp, muffled by the walls, my hands holding him tight, our bodies moving as one. The pleasure was fierce, overwhelming, a betrayal that felt like escape. The bed creaked, the night heavy with our heat, my sin unfolding. The house stood still, indifferent, as I crossed a line I couldn't uncross. It was everything, every ache, every want, every vow I'd buried. Afterward, we stayed there, tangled, breathless, the air heavy with the scent of antiseptic and us. Daniel's hair fell across my shoulder, his fingers tracing my hip, his eyes half closed with satisfaction. The guilt crashed in a deluge, but his warmth held it at bay, a lie I wanted to believe. "This can't last," I said, my voice rough, unconvincing. He smiled slow and knowing, his lips brushing my ear. "It doesn't need to," he said, and damn him, he was right. The Savannah summer lingered, and so did the weight of my betrayal. I left the guest room, my scrubs back on, Daniel's scent bourbon, and sin clinging to me. Mark was at the fire station, oblivious, his trust a knife in my chest. I tried to be the fiancé he deserved, texting him updates, smiling through calls, but Daniel's touch haunted me, his face in every shadow, every dream. The guilt was a beast clawing at me, but my need burned brighter, a fire I couldn't douse. The affairs were fleeting, stolen moments with other patients, Mr. Carter, 45, a divorcee with a charming grin, and Mr. Evans, 38, a veteran with intense eyes. Each encounter was a spark in their kitchens, their studies, their back porches, each fading fast, but leaving me craving more. One night I was at Daniel's again, his recovery nearly complete, his eyes catching mine. Mark was on a night shift. Daniel approached, his voice low. "You're not done," he said, his hand grazing my arm, reigniting the spark. I told myself to stop to honor Mark, but my body betrayed me. He texted later, midnight. "My porch." I went the night thick with humidity, his silhouette waiting under the stars. The porch was open, the air heavy with moss and desire. His shirt discarded, his skin glowing in the moonlight. His kiss was fiercer now, desperate hands tearing at my scrubs. My hands roamed his body, greedy, memorizing every muscle, every shudder. The night's hum hid our sin, but the guilt was sharper, a blade I couldn't outrun. His lips found my throat, his hand sliding under my lace, his touch a brand I'd never erase. Mark grew suspicious. "You're distant, Tess," he said, his eyes searching mine over dinner. I froze, his trust a contrast to my betrayal. "Just work, stress." I lied, my voice tight, my mind flashing to the porch, Daniel's hands on my skin. His frown deepened, and I feared he saw the truth. "I love you," he said, and the words were a weight crushing me. Then it happened. Mark caught me, his truck pulling up as I left Daniel's house. My scrubs rumpled Daniel's silhouette in the doorway. "Tessa!" he shouted, his face crumpling, his pain a mirror of my guilt. I froze, my sin unraveling, his trust shattered. How many, he whispered, tears in his eyes, and I couldn't answer. I told Daniel it was over. He stood on his porch, his eyes blazing, his shirt open. "You'll miss this," he said, his voice a challenge. He left a locket behind his initials scratched into it, tucked into my bag. I should have thrown it away, but I kept it a secret that scorched. The Savannah heat lingered, and so did my shame, a fire I couldn't quench. Mark confronted me. "Who else?" he asked, holding the locket, his voice trembling. I froze, my sin unraveling his trust, a mirror of my guilt. I confessed not all but enough, admitting to Daniel Carter Evans my loneliness, my betrayal. He left his face broken, our engagement over. I was alone, the locket in my hand, Daniel's scent, a ghost I'd never escape. This is my story, a warning to anyone who thinks they can chase fire and not get burned. If you've watched this far, you know that betrayal, that ache for what you shouldn't take. So hit that subscribe button, drop a comment, call me a fool, a sinner, or just a nurse who fell. Like the video, or don't, but share it with someone who's felt infidelity's sting. Check out my other stories, they're just as raw, just as real. Ever sought solace in a forbidden touch? Spill your secrets below, I'm listening, and I've been there.